I mean, who knew Cruella de Vil was so punk? Cruella is brought to us by director Craig Gillespie and stars Emma Stone, Emma Thompson, Mark Strong, and Joel Fry. We follow Estella, played by Emma Stone, a young orphan grifter who has dreams of being a titan in the fashion industry. When she comes across an opportunity to play under the world's foremost baroness of fashion, played by Emma Thompson, she jumps on board wholeheartedly. However, she soon realizes that she and this baroness share more history than she initially thought. And so we are thrust into a story that tells us of the triumphant rise of Cruella de Vil. Now, I ain't gonna lie, when I first heard about Cruella, I really wasn't that interested. At that point, I was kind of over the whole Disney live-action remake or adaptation thing they've been doing for years. At best, a couple of these live-action remakes have been decent, and at worst, they've been pretty fucking bad. I'm looking at you, Lion King. But don't go far, Aladdin, because you ain't far behind. Upon seeing the first trailer of this movie, I still wasn't very convinced. It just wasn't on my radar. I didn't have much of a desire to check this movie out, so I didn't. But then it came out and people started saying, hey, this movie's actually pretty good, or at least not bad. And that would be why I'm a little late with my review, because I honestly had no intention of watching this movie. But I buckled down last night and checked it out, and now I'm here today to talk to you about what I thought about it. So, am I on board with everybody who said that this movie was just so much better than they thought it would be? Well, kinda. Yes, this movie is a lot better than I thought it would be. But you gotta understand, I thought it wasn't gonna be any good at all. This movie's not awful, and it is entertaining enough for what it is. I more or less had an enjoyable time for the most part with it. Now, that being said, I didn't love everything about this movie either. First of all, the performances. None of them are bad. Everybody here does a really good job. However, I do want to point out Emma Stone and Joel Fry. These two sold the show. While Emma Thompson was also really good and fun in her role, she was very much like a Disney villain. Emma Stone's Cruella, on the other hand, while at times she had that kind of villainous Disney thing going on, her character actually showed some genuine emotion, and I thought she did a fantastic job with the material. But not just her. Joel Fry as Jasper did a fantastic job as well. I really enjoyed the interactions between these two throughout the film. Now, I don't really remember Jasper being quite like Joel Fry's portrayal in this movie, but admittedly, I am not the world's foremost 101 Dalmatians aficionado. I've seen all the different versions of them, and I am aware of the characters, but I don't have some long, deep fondness for them or anything. No, I don't think anybody did a bad job in the performance department of this movie. There was a divide, and on either side of that divide, we had Emma Stone and Joel Fry over here, and on the other side, we had pretty much everybody else. Mark Strong was kind of over here with these two every now and then, but mostly it was just them and then everybody else. Now, neither of these two parties did bad, but everybody over here, the vast majority of the cast, seemed like they were playing characters in a Disney movie. But these two guys over here were on another level. Emma Stone and Joel Fry, as previously mentioned, were fantastic. They were the only ones that really seemed truly genuine. They weren't quite as heightened as everybody else. Sure, this is a movie about Cruella de Vil, and of course everybody's a bit heightened, including Emma Stone herself. These two over here showed vulnerability in different parts of the film. Everybody else was just playing a character. These weren't bad, they really did fit within this movie, but these two just really elevated it up quite a bit. Something else I liked about the movie, for the most part, was its look. This movie looks really good. It looks like it cost a lot of money, and that's because it did. However, where all that budget went is an odd situation, and we'll get to that in just a minute. The movie's version of 1960s London does feel like it's 1960s London. The costumes and set design and locations in this film look great. However, when it comes to the special effects, there are some inconsistencies here or there. Nothing here looks like god-awful terrible, but there are definitely some parts where you could tell that is absolutely CGI. But even in those moments, it still looks really good. However, there are a couple of moments where the CGI really lets down what's going on screen. Most specifically, there is a part closer to the end where a character is in some water. I don't want to give too much away, but this character is in a body of water. It's not a very long scene, but man, it just looks really fucking bad in comparison to everything else in this movie. You may think I'm nitpicking, but in a $200 million movie, I am expecting a bit more from it. Overall though, everything here looks really good. It is just that those moments that don't look good look even worse because everything else is on point. Now, I said this movie had a $200 million budget, and it did, but if you look it up, a huge portion of that went to song rights. I don't think I've ever heard so many licensed songs in one film in my entire life. Now, I'd heard that this movie had a lot of music in it, and it absolutely does. It is like it's playing music from beginning to end. It skips from track to track to track like a teenager who just got their first CD player and is just skipping from track to track to track. And some people are going to love that because some of the songs are really on the nose when it comes to scenes in this movie. However, for me, while I did enjoy it to a degree, at times it started to get in the way of what was going on screen. When I start to notice the music in a scene and not what's actually going on in the scene, that's a problem. And it's a lot, man. It's like nonstop. If you haven't experienced it, you won't know. This movie doesn't have a lot of scenes where there's not music playing in the background. And we're not really used to that. I mean, we're used to that in like music videos, but in movies, we're used to having a lot of scenes that don't have music going on in the background that's kind of mirroring what's going on screen. Did I hate it? No, but admittedly it did take away from some parts of the movie when I think it was trying to actually add something. And considering the ludicrous amount of money that they spent on all the licenses for these songs, I don't think it was all really worth it. But I do know that some people have really enjoyed this aspect of the movie, so you gotta take what I'm saying with a grain of salt when it comes to this point. Now, for the most part up to this point, I've been saying pretty good things about this movie, and overall I did have a fairly good time with the movie. It was, as I said, better than I was expecting. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows in Cruellaville. The movie's long, and that's not always a problem for me. I don't mind a long movie, but this movie's long and it seems long. It clocks in at 2 hours and 15 minutes, and this movie just didn't need to be that long. There's a lot of fat on the bones here that they could have trimmed off. This movie revels in itself. There are so many parts in this movie that they could have cut or nipped and tucked and just really tightened up the pace and made this overall experience better as a whole. The last like 30 minutes of the movie, I kept looking at my watch wondering, damn, when the hell is this thing gonna end? I mean, I'm not hating it or anything. I'm not miserable here, but for fuck's sake, how long is this thing going on? And then there's also the story itself. I don't hate the story here, but it just really didn't totally do it for me. I don't feel as if I needed an origin story to Cruella de Vil, regardless of how much I like Emma Stone's performance here. Sure, the movie was fun in some parts, and I didn't hate it, but I also didn't really see a point in it. I didn't feel like I needed this. If I had never seen this movie, I'd be okay with it. There's a lot of shit they packed in here that just doesn't really get us to the finish line. You also have to be a Disney Plus subscriber to see this movie, and on top of that, you have to pay an extra fee, and it's just not worth that. The movie's pretty, it's got some nice performances, and it has some interesting ways it uses music, even though it does kind of overuse it. But it doesn't change the fact that overall, it's just not very memorable. Guys, after all is said and done, Cruella was okay. I didn't mind it, but like I said, I didn't really need it either. We got some really great fun performances, especially from Emma Stone and Joel Fry. The movie nails its setting, and overall, for the most part, it looks really damn good. But the key thing and most damning thing here is that there's just not enough story for a 2 hour and 15 minute long movie. All that notwithstanding though, the movie is enjoyable enough. I wouldn't really go out of my way to see it, and I definitely wouldn't pay that extra charge on Disney Plus, but once it shows up without that charge, it's absolutely worth checking out on streaming.
Across the street.
While I can't really say that this movie really restored my faith in Disney's live-action remakes and reboots or whatever they are, it was admittedly better than I initially thought it was gonna be. I didn't hate myself because I watched it. It was okay. I am also admittedly not a huge fan of 101 Dalmatians. I mean, I guess I like it as much as the next guy, but I'm not like a 101 Dalmatians purist or anything. But if you are a fan of 101 Dalmatians or Disney as a whole, then check this one out one night, and I think you'll have a pretty pretty good time with it. So there it is, guys, my review of Cruella. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, London.
Don't worry, there's lots more bad things coming. Perhaps?
So as of the recording of this video, this movie is doing pretty well. It's not like setting the world on fire or anything, but it is doing well enough that Disney has probably taken notice and is probably going to greenlight some more villain origin stories. So it gets me to wondering, what Disney villain of yesteryear's origin story are we gonna get next? I've heard talks about the Little Mermaid's Ursula. I mean, there's Jafar from Aladdin. I mean, hell, why not a Scar from The Lion King? For fuck's sake, please just don't do that. Disney, just stay away from Lion King. You've already done enough damage. If you asked me, which nobody is, but if you asked me, I would say Disney, grow some balls, take it back to your live action catalog from the early 80s, and what I want is a villain origin story of Something Wicked This Way Comes villain Mr. Dark. That could be some twisted ass shit. I want to know that guy's backstory. And if you don't know who the hell I'm talking about, then check out 1983's Something Wicked This Way Comes. This is what it's like when Disney has balls. And this is what it's like when Disney scares the absolute fucking shit out of you as a child.